This is the meeting of Prince George's County Police Accountability Board. Today's date is Wednesday, May 14th, 2025. The time is now 6:41 p.m. Call the meeting to order. Before you call the roll, if you're participating in person, please just say present, and if you are virtual, just say present virtual. Vice Chair Sanchez. Mr. James. Present. Mrs. Bryant. Mrs. Spring.
Present virtually.
Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Coleman.
Present virtually.
Jones. Melton.
Present.
Mr. O'Neill.
Present.
Mrs. Maxwell.
Present.
Mrs. Ridley.
She's away, family loss.
She lost the number of her sister. Okay. We can have one, go ahead and move on to our agenda. Do we have anyone to sign up to speak to us this evening? No? Okay. We want to review and put in the meeting minutes. Now we have four to do so. But anyone need any additional time to review the minutes? And motion to approve minutes, one at a time. March 26, 2025. Motion made to approve the minutes from March 26, 2025, made by Mr. Melton, second by Mrs. Maxwell. All in favor to approve the minutes from March 26, 2025, say aye.
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 Any abstaining? And March 26, 2025 are approved. Next, there you go. Motion to approve the minutes of April 9th, 2025, made by Mr. Melton. Thank you, Maxwell. Second by Mrs. Maxwell. All in favor to approve the minutes of April 9th, 2025, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Minutes of April 9th, 2025 are approved. Next, April 23rd, 2025.
Motion to approve the minutes. Third, 2025.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Motion made to approve the minutes made by Mr. Melton, seconded by Mr. James. All in favor to approve those minutes, say aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? I will be abstaining. April 2025, April 25th, I'm sorry, 2025, in special meeting.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of April 25th, 2025. Second.
Motion made to approve the minutes from April 25th, 2025, special meeting of Mr. Melton, second by Mr. James. All in favor to approve those minutes, say aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? I was not present at that meeting. So thank you so much. All right, next up on our agenda is reports and update from the subcommittees. I'd like to go first with that part. No, right here, right, sir? No, thank you, ready?
Can be in a moment.
Okay.
Second. All right, ready to go. On me?
Ready?
Whoever ready. Sure, yeah, I'll go ahead. So I have kind of steering a couple subcommittees, so I'll just start with the appointments. Subcommittee. Ebony was, again, I checked in with the subcommittee, and those members who were able to be participants on our latest cycle of AHB appointments. As you all know, we sort of conducted some interviews through that process. Personally, I felt like the questions, sort of achieved the responses that we were looking for. So I thought that the questions themselves were effective, in getting the responses, that we would hope that were tied to the competencies that we said we wanted to see elicited in certain candidates. I checked with different members, everyone felt similarly in terms of not really having any feedback, feeling like the process was good. One of the things we wanted to do though, was see if we could refine the process to just run a tighter ship. Ebony was kind enough to supply us with an actual rubric, which would apply ratings for the type of responses that we would receive in any future interview. Those ratings would give us a 5-point scale for each question, giving a candidate a total of 40 points that they can achieve through the process. And essentially being able to get 3 different, what I would say, ratings: unacceptable, acceptable, and outstanding. And she provided definitions for what those ratings would consist of. So I would love for the board to be able to review that for our next meeting. And we can have staff share that with the rest of the board members to get, even those that aren't here today, to get feedback on what that would look like, and we can vote on whether we want to adopt that process and rubric for future interviews. I think it's a great idea. Thank you, Evan, for sending that over. If there is any other feedback at this time related to the interview process, we may be able to sort of incorporate that into any future communications and any future actions that we want to adopt for the interview process for the interview. So there is, yeah, so we did come to a consensus. There was a vote for us as a subcommittee to be empowered to make the selection. So I guess the question becomes, do we have to sort of ratify our selection at this time? Do we have to go into closed session to have that discussion? I'm just not sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you come out, I read the close of meeting stuff, didn't have the name. So if they've empowered you to put the name. To the code.
Okay, okay,
They don't have to go.
okay.
Yes.
Okay. I did also have another item that I wanted to.
We'll go back, but y'all go back, you need to tell them the name. That you have. Well, have y'all offered it?
To the gentleman.
Oh, you did.
Okay.
Y'all got to make the selection, so the selection is made. You don't have to talk about it. You do need to say, yeah, I think it was 2. And you somebody, you can put that. Let's see. Did they say?
Well, I spoke to, I was under the impression that it has to be a vote, so I told him after today, and I was able to call back.
You know, you call. So it can get on the.
Okay, so,
So, which that,
You might say,
yes, sir.
No. Get it out there, don't let everybody. You might say no. So you can put that part.
So we, yeah, so we'll go ahead and table that. Well, that could be vice chair, when that.
No.
Just put you on the spot, so once we get that, we'll get, move forward. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Melton. And then, we're going to table the, selection until we make sure that we get confirmation. And then we'll visit that before we, this meeting. James, you have a second?
You should have received it was part of the read aheads just for the subcommittee legislation and recommendation subcommittee update. Just briefly, we submitted, input on the one pager for the chief's quarterly meeting. Right there, that's highlighted in the written report, and then the tasks that are currently underway are highlighted in the report as well. They all are in reference to, the recommendations and submissions from 23, 24, and presumably what we would push forward as our 2025 recommendations. So the committee will be meeting on tomorrow to take action on those items, and then we'll update the full board at the next meeting.
That committee, meet?
It is 5. So it stays under the forum purpose.
Yes, you are.
Yes, we are. Don't say.
Although not today, but I would like to have a discussion. Think about that. Even with
Is that it, Mr. James?
That is
I'll be quick, thank you, sir. No, sir.
All right, so as part of the case review subcommittee, we have one outstanding item, which after completing our preliminary review of the ACC report, which was from 2024, the only real case data that we really had available until the ACC is staffed with their admin position. And so through that, we were able to come to some consensus on some recommendations we wanted to provide to the ACC. After sharing with the larger board in a previous meeting, there was a request, Lafayette, could you maybe draft what that email might look like? So I did that. Again, Ebony was able to print that out for us. So you have a copy of a draft email. And what you can do is either note your recommended changes or suggestions, or additions, if there are any, and forward that back to staff and get it to me. And then I can add that, and we can, vote to have this sent over to the ACC.
Have that together, and we actually have taken more of the review of the subcommittee. So, I guess we have to figure out how, so, to make this have.
Okay.
Subcommittee updates.
I would just add that subcommittee also has the same number of members, so if there's concern with number of members, then it should be extended to that one.
I would. Thank you for that. Thank you.
I think the last meeting where we went over that, I'm not sure if I was present. So, where do we stand with the policy and procedure? I thought that we were supposed to vote and move forward with the document. That happened.
I think that's what happened in this meeting.
Okay.
The final document was circulated on Monday, and yeah, I think the time to vote on it today.
Great, thank you, Mr. Young. And then my copy of the document, should be. Okay. Any questions on the document? We put it to-
The one thing I would like to do a better job of is giving people timelines, because I think that's helpful when individuals are getting stuff back. So if you could get any recommended changes or suggestions to me by Wednesday, that would be great.
Thank you, Mr. Milton.
Wait, recommendation for what?
Oh, for the draft letter.
The Draft email.
Okay.
I know, I saw the look on you, but, right, I wasn't gonna say anything, I was gonna let them be confused a little bit.
Yeah.
I saw Mr. Jones looking like.
Oh, right. Yeah, okay, okay.
I'm sorry, that was so cold.
No,
So I saw both now, I wasn't gonna say.
Thank you.
So, yeah, we were talking about the document, that Mr. Melton gone over shortly. Okay, so, at this point, I guess we'll go ahead and someone make a motion to accept the policy and procedures. I'm sorry.
I'll move to accept the finalized, rules and procedure document that was circulated on Monday.
Okay. Motion made to accept the rules and procedures finalized document by Mr. Jones. For a second.
Second.
And seconded by Mr. Melton. All in favor to accept the rules and procedures document that was circulated, say aye. Opposed? And for those of you online, if you're not able to say anything, if you can just hit a thumbs up, so we know for the record. Or raise your hand. Thank you, thank you. Dr. Coleman, you pay attention, that's what I'm talking about. That's the data person right there. Spring? Yes. Mrs. Springs is there.
I guess.
So, that was any opposed? Mrs. Springs? Okay, when I said, so it is unanimous. And I do want to thank those of you that worked very, very hard on this document. I know it was a lot more back and forth. But I really thank you guys for doing that and standing there, because I know it was frustrating at times. Really, thank you, Mrs. Springs. I know. Thank you. All right. And everyone participated on it. Next up on our agenda will be, agenda of new business. Chiefs meeting, according to Chiefs meeting with any questions. I think we all have a copy of that. Any questions or concerns with the Chiefs, questions for the Chiefs, our next Chiefs meeting?
I have a couple recommendations. I think for,
Mute the mic, maybe, so the rest of the listening will not hear. Thank you so much.
apologies.
No worries.
Thank you. I think for, just a couple of kind of smaller things, I think for 5 and 6, the last sentence in each, I think I'd rather leave out and make a suggestion to them after their response. Those questions just feel like we're like answering the question for them before they've gotten a chance to. I'd rather just ask the question, let them respond, and then make the suggestion to, after hearing what they have to say on what strategies your department implemented, saying, if we hear them say they haven't done trainings with intervention or escalation, suggesting that after getting their response saying, we suggest you look into de-escalation and intervention. And the same logic with number 6, I think just asking, how does your department ensure data is publicly accessible? Hearing what they have to say, and then saying, well, maybe you should conduct data presentations in the community. We think that would be an efficient way to get data.
Okay, so,
Right.
Yeah, for that one, yeah.
We can leave off the second question and number 6.
Yeah, it just, to me, my read, maybe, again, maybe it's small, but to me, it just feels like we're answering the question for them after we've asked it. Like, I'd rather just hear what they have to say, and then if we have that suggestion, make it after the response.
Leave off number 5, the first partnership and trust. That all is the same.
Just the last sentence, so for number 5 on this one,
Or it's
yeah, is there a training or a component of ongoing training that deals with officer intervention or de-escalation? I suggest we leave it off and suggest it to them after they respond. And the same in number 6, I think the second question, do you conduct data presentations for the community? I think we just ask the first question and then we can suggest that to them.
Okay, so you're suggesting that we just ask the question based off of the answer? If
Yes.
it's not sufficient enough, then we make that
Yeah,
recommendation.
exactly.
If they're not doing it,
Yes,
We make that
yeah,
recommendation.
like, let's give them the chance to tell us they're doing it.
is everyone okay with that?
I guess my inquiry is just based on tracking how many times we've asked these questions to certain chiefs. Since different attendance at these meetings, but also I don't want to get into the cycle of things being repetitive, because some of these I think have been answered, but I'm not certain that our next cycle invitees have been asked this, but I feel like we've asked this at the time.
But the only thing is that she does I guess for that one side.
Yeah, but I mean, we've given them the opportunity, so I don't know.
Think inconsistent.
No, you're saying refresh.
Yeah, I'm saying
Oh,
refresh it to
question.
make it relevant.
Okay, so
Yeah, because I mean, we're asking it to all of them, so if they have an answer, I get, we would love to have that input, but they had an opportunity and they didn't choose to answer. So just out of respect for the other chiefs, heard that question.
Oh, gotcha. Okay,
So we change the question each time.
Yeah, I think, I would love for us to adopt regular review of our questions.
For each.
Yeah. And I think Mr. James had derived some things from our review of the ACC report and some of the other data that we've been seeing recently that can sort of stimulate new questions on a quarterly cycle. So that I think that would be something that some of these questions might be good to refresh. Others might be able to just say, hey, look, how have things been recently? But some of them, I think we've kind of got the answers already.
and I think that is a great idea. I think it is a great idea. But anyway, I think it's a great idea. To base our questions sometimes based off of what's going on in the data that we receive. There may be some complaints that come in that we trend and look at, want to ask them questions. So I think that's a great idea as well. And so I think that with the subcommittees and things like that, once we get the reports, leading up to the next current chiefs meeting based off of that subcommittee findings and reports, we can then tweak it and develop the questions. One of the things that has to be important is that we can't go 2 or 3 weeks with trying to finalize questions. I think that whatever meeting they come up at, we need to make a decision at that point, and if we cannot, fault. Have to. Can you agree to that?
I would make the suggestion that, because I think I completely support this move. I think it's the right way to go. I think the initial reasoning behind asking everyone the same question was to get a sense of a baseline from everybody. And so if we're talking about refreshing the meeting, the questions every time, which I think we should, I think we should try and do our best to capitalize on an organic conversation. I think we should then think about, do we take the 5 of these questions? I know some are scratched off. I don't know what number is here now, but do we take these 5 and just send to each law enforcement agency as an email and ask for a response by a date so that we have written baselines based on these? Because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the initial intent behind why we wanted consistent questions, so we can get a sense of where each agency is on some of these things. And I think we should lose that.
Okay, and I do recall that I did make a suggestion based off the data and what may be going on, we may want to ask specific questions at that particular time. For an example, if a citizen has a question that they want to submit to the police accountability board to ask that is relevant, we should be able to answer that question as well. So I think that, both is great. I like the idea of submitting them. But I think we do need to review them based off of the subcommittee's, findings and reports.
Yeah,
That we should move like that.
to clarify, I mean more like just like once we send one email, right, to all the LEAs with these questions, just to get that baseline from everybody at the beginning of the year or right now, whenever, we send this one time. And then from then on, we organically create our questions as we have our quarterly meetings.
Okay.
Is my suggestion for approach.
Okay.
I apologize.
No, clarifying question, probably just catching up. So in our formal meetings, we've asked the same questions.
Yes. Yes.
I just want to understand why we ask the same questions.
Well, the conversation,
I mean, the exact same.
right, the conversation came up that we thought that the questions were relevant to reporting out to the communities, from the LEAs. And we thought that we wanted to give every LEA the opportunity to answer that particular question. Now we're saying that based off of what we've started to see, that Mr. Jones is, proposing that we change the question. So that was our logic behind it. We thought that it would be just to have everybody, giving everyone an opportunity. I mean, it can be changed at any time. What Mr. Jones is saying.
I'm sorry, they're not the same people who were there.
That's,
Oh,
yeah.
I did,
Oh.
yeah, so they were
Okay.
different LEAs,
Gotcha.
so they're all getting
That's what I
at
was
least
missing.
one
okay.
time.
That's what I was
Now,
getting to,
yeah,
gotcha.
yeah, but now, sometimes the same people have come again.
Okay, all right.
So you thought that it was the same law
People
enforcement
were the
agencies,
same.
like
I
the
saw
same
her
question?
face.
I didn't see your face. We should have given that. Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the staff, Ms. Rose has been, she had a great session. So we break them up into sessions. And so that's why. Okay. I wasn't there, so I guess I have to sit there for the connection. Thank you, sir.
You were looking down, sir.
Oh, okay, thank you. You didn't want one? Oh, okay, thank you. Okay. All right, cool. Thank you. So clarification, right, Mrs. Maxwell?
Okay.
All right, cool, thank you. So I think that that's a great idea. Now, should we have to vote on that or can we just agree to do that? So at this meeting, so Mr. Jones's proposal is to send these questions to the remaining law enforcement agencies that we already have not met with, correct? To get a response to these particular questions. And then, even based off of maybe the responses, we may develop more questions from that, or based off of what we hear from community, or what we may see in trends and data and things like that. I think that's a good idea. You okay with that, Mr.? No, okay. Is everyone okay with that, or does anyone have another suggestion?
Clarify, do you want to send it just the remaining ones, or do you want a baseline across all?
I was gonna say, I think for consistency's sake, it's probably best to send it to even folks who have been.
Okay,
It's just one email, like you can
okay.
respond. I think it's easy enough, and I think for consistency's sake, we should just blanket send it to all 28.
Mhm. You should know that question, so.
I should know that, right? I think we should just one time send it to everyone. Like get the responses in, pursue more the ones that we haven't heard from at all already. And then from there, to your point, just dynamic with the questions quarterly.
So a question on that. So if we send it to the ones that have already answered it and their answers appear to be different than what they previously said, then at that point, what do we?
We have follow-up conversations.
Okay,
Yeah, I think that's also indicative.
okay.
It is. Should. But I would also say, some of you may have done this already, but we're asking you to give an updated response, so they don't just think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll make this, okay, so we will adopt these, to the questions that we do have before, but we will agree to send these questions out to every law enforcement agency. And then with the edits that you suggested, to give them an opportunity to give us their response. And then, after that, develop questions based off of what we receive back, and then also other, subcommittees and whatever we hear from the community. Is that agreeable from everyone? Okay, so, Attorney Camp, do we need to take a vote on that, or can we just make that? Okay, so that is what the board has agreed to, and anyone has anything to say that's participating virtually, and other members, please just raise your hand. Just interrupt, just go ahead and jump in. Well, give me the confused look like Mrs. Maxwell gave. So thank you. Yes, ma'am. Kim?
I'm gonna reset. I'm at a point now. Let's vote on everything. So, I'll take the motions to this.
Before the motion, I will say, I had one more edit I do want to suggest on the questions. I feel like just looking at it, I think that it might be better to combine the essence of 8 and 9. And instead maybe ask like, because my thought process is, they already asked for what they need to do their jobs effectively somewhere else. Like they have budget requests and they have some formal process to request resources. So we don't necessarily need to ask that. We can either ask for whatever that request that already exists looks like. But I think more our question is there anything that they think that we should be aware of, and if they have questions for us?
So, and then you're talking about question 9, and personally, I do like question 9 because it gives them an opportunity based off of, the crime reports, what they may need at that time.
Which one are we looking at?
Yeah,
Well, my suggestion is, oh, you're looking to have, yeah, question 8 and 9.
No, he's holding up the other one.
yeah, just-
Oh, no, I'm looking, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, we need to decide which one we're talking about, 'cause-
So,
Yeah,
based on the dates, this is the more current one, so I thought that this.
but this says proposed, this is proposed new question.
I've been working off of this one.
Yeah,
so, and, yeah, that was right, so I would agree.
Wait, are they the same?
they're
No.
not.
So we're looking at the document just for you guys, go ahead, question.
Oh, no, I just want to make sure that which one we're gonna talk about.
We're looking at for those members that are virtual, we're looking at the UNA Chiefs meetings where it has 2 pages. One. Oh, okay. So you didn't surprise about that. Okay.
Mr. Chair, because I'm trying to take, then
We're
it's
not-
switched, no? They said this is the latest one.
That's
This is
what-
the latest.
So the first one.
That's the original. And this is the
Email act and if anybody had any something. The question, the name and the suggestion was the one that is.
Okay,
So the landscape.
right, great, thank you.
So I'm just
We're
gonna,
missing a page.
Of the land.
Back.
So they were 8.
It's not on the back of.
Yeah, so
Oh,
y'all know, my glasses ain't on, but I know they ain't no printing on there.
On some of them, but it ain't on all of them.
Yeah, mine has a back.
but I will ask for purposes of, because this is gonna be included, going forward, just put dates. So we'll kind of know what we're doing.
Well, then I'll say this, I think these broader questions are a little less time sensitive than quarterly questions, so I think that maybe we could put a date on that. So I think we can like agree on the process and then agree to work on the questions moving forward. I'm not really know, unless we want to decide on it all right now. And it doesn't feel super pressing to do that, though.
Agreed.
When's our next meeting?
Next.
The next week.
Yeah, so the next meeting, we're meeting with them, so we need to have questions for that meeting. So that's what I'm confused about is, are we saying that we're gonna set this aside and then create all the questions for this next meeting?
Yes.
Or, are we- okay, so we're gonna put all of these as a baseline
These
question.
are baseline questions
And then
now,
we're gonna develop brand new questions for our next meeting, right now.
The next
is my
quarter.
understanding.
Okay.
So my initial thought was that we would have invites going to a certain set chief be invited,
Right.
which would essentially have a new set every quarter.
Yeah.
But I've been noticing more chiefs are still coming that have been in previous meetings. So the questions are becoming repetitive to them. So if quarter 4, the idea is that it's gonna be sort of a group that hadn't been invited yet. Is this our 4th quarter? This would be the of this year, but not, well, we've been asking questions last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, this will be our 4th one. Yeah.
Right.
This is our fourth for the fiscal.
Yeah, fiscal year wise, yeah. it's
Right.
4.
So if this captures the full roster of chiefs, ideally, I would be all right refreshing after that.
Right.
Because the idea again is to make sure everyone got it for the first time. But
third quarter, we're gonna do questions. That's what we said.
That's what Mr. Jones proposed.
That's
For the next,
probably,
yeah.
yeah.
And I agree with that, but I think for the sake of time, I think because it gets a little tedious, I think that we should adopt either these or make these the adjustments now, rather than
Yeah.
to continue to go on to the next meeting.
Yeah.
And then we look at the questions and may not like the questions, then we get into this big discussion about it. So I think what we have in front of us, I think that we should try to either go with this or make our adjustments now and adopt this, and then after that meeting, move forward with that, put that on the agenda.
That makes sense. I didn't realize it was so.
So is Mrs. Michael, do you have the right one? You said landscape.
No,
right?
I have both.
Okay, great. So, and everybody has a document, that we're looking at. If we can just review that real quick, if you have any suggestions for anything or any edits, let's discuss them now, so we can go ahead and finalize this for our next meeting.
The point I was just making, I do think it's important for them to let us know what they feel we can do to support them. But I feel like I want to ask like questions as constructively as we can. And like they make requests for resources in other places. Like if they need squad cars, that request goes to the IG. I don't know what the process is, but you know what I'm saying? Like they already make the request in their budget or something for the things that I need to do my job better in this next year. And so I feel like it might be more constructive to ask them, are there things, issues, circumstances, or context to things that you want us to be aware of as we're crafting our recommendations and policies for how you're like doing your role, is what I'm thinking.
So.
That might be too much.
No, I agree. I agree with that, but I agree also that we should ask for more resources because each jurisdiction may be different. So they may need different things. I'm not saying, and I think that it's important to report that out to the community. If they see that they need, like you with the example, police cars or something like that. I think I like both of them. That way we can report out, that, many new, LEA department needs, I think Mr. James, given his perspective on his ride along, there were some suggestions and things that he had. So that LEA may come up with some suggestions what they need, but it may not be the same for another. So I think that it's important that when we do start breaking down the data, that we could even include that those are some of the things that are needed. I know that they have a formal process for requesting equipment or whatever the resources that they need, but I think that it's important for us to know that as well, so we can look at some of the trends and data that may be coming from that jurisdiction and see if the lack of those resources are tied in some of the things that we see. But I like both of them.
Mr. Jones, you said, when you made you said a different recommendation. What was the distinct difference between resources and what you were advocating for?
Like, I think,
Because you were saying they can already request resources that they need, but then you reiterated a version of the question that sounded similar.
like, instead of, because I feel like if you say like, oh, like maybe I'm getting caught up on the word resources, because to me, that comes across as like tangible, like, it comes across as like budgetary items. Like, and I don't have influence over your budget. I can't ask for your budget.
Right.
But if you think there are important things that I should know, like if there's context to like, we're struggling with detaining, or taking multiple calls a night because, our squad cars are XYZ, like if there's context to circumstances that we should be aware of, or is there's a specific issue, like, I don't know, again, like our lines drop or something. I don't know what the explanation is.
Okay.
But if there's something in particular for that LEA that they think like, this is a unique circumstance for us that we are struggling with, I think just asking them to tell us that instead of telling me that you have budgetary needs.
So it sounds like you're broadening the
Yes,
ask
yes.
to be inclusive of other areas that might not be limited to tangible
Yeah,
budget related.
because I feel like if you're gonna tell me that you need tangible items, like, can't do a lot with that. Like, and you already make that request to whoever manages your budget anyways.
Yeah, and I think that's the essence of why we picked this question, so I think if we keep it, I think if we broaden it, say,
Yeah,
reword it, I think it serves the purpose that we.
So I was having heartburn. It was just articulated in terms of what type of question we ask, because we don't want to cross into the administrative function of the department when we talk about cars or, I think that's where. But if you tie it into our purpose, into the police accountability board's purpose, and that takes a unique way to ask the question. So they don't even believe we can do something that may not be in our purview. It is how you ask the question. And it is.
I'm sorry.
That was my kind of statement was, I didn't see it as broadening the question. I was trying to figure out how to narrow the question and narrow the scope, because if you're telling me you have a discourtesy problem at your department because you don't have enough cars, I'm not a genius, but I can't tie that together.
Right.
So I think we have to ask the question as it relates to our scope and our mission. And those are the resources that we may want to ask questions about, but it has to be pertaining to what we have some impact or influence over. And like you said, we don't have it over other things. We've heard, hey, we need recruitment. Okay, that's potentially something. We can tie that to our scope, but you know, those tangible items, I just don't see how we're taking it in to use as a data point later.
We heard one about cages and cars one time.
Right.
Right? Can't do it like that.
Right, but.
It's important to know.
But that's contextual.
Exactly.
So it informed me a lot about what's happening with policing and the barriers or guardrails that they might be dealing with that are financial, that are like tangible things, so that I can apply that context to maybe what's happening. It may not necessarily apply directly to cases, but it is about policing, the day-to-day.
Right.
But I think it's the same thing, if you got a question on an administrator and you start seeing 10 of them say we don't have enough cars, so when you do that annual report, you're seeing something tied to the lack of, to me, that's helpful, even though you don't have,
Yeah, like
you don't
response
have
time.
response, right? It may have some impact on some things that aren't, and just in 2 points, just has to be asked, so that it's clear.
And then just for clarification, we're not saying that anything that you may need budgetary wise, we're not saying that we want to be able to, we know we can't do anything about that, but I think for the public to be able to know some of those things that this department is lacking in resources. Because then if we look at, let's say 2023, they said this, and then if you see the same issues in 2024, there's a broader issue right here at this point. So then so I'm just saying it for report. Of course, we can't make any decisions, but I think that we should report to the community, because that can kind of correlate to some of the issues that we may see, some of the trends we may see. So I think that I'm not saying that we should eliminate either one. I think having both is okay. That's what I'm saying. For reporting purposes, because I think if we're going to follow trends, knowing the equipment that they say that they need in the LEA, I think that's a trend, because they can directly correlate. Because if the citizens saying, well, their response time was, I waited 2.5 hours. Then we can look at some of the data and resources, and then we can say, well, these are some of the things that they reported to us. We'll keep track of it, because we want policing to get better. We want the response time and everything to get better. So I think it's just all broadening and bringing it together. I like both of them. So I don't think we should eliminate it. And like I said, like Mr. Melton was saying, that you can kind of correlate some of that, what their resources requests are to maybe what some trends and things we see about, right, Melton?
Yeah, and I'll just say, I think there is an argument to be made that we have a focus and a very narrow view of what we want out of a question. But I think there's just a broader sense of what I interpreted this question to mean. I know that there's nothing I can do about training. That's a very critical resource. Yeah, so if they say this is why officers are having trouble with this particular interaction, we don't get into training, or the only training we have right now is a virtual one that's 20 minutes. That's just contextual. So if there is language or verbiage that we can do to get a better idea of what we want to get out of that question, I'm all for it.
And that is what I'll say is my point. I think just asking what resources do you need is, I need 3 more squad cars, I need to add a cage in the back, and I can use 3 more, officers on patrol. But that doesn't give me the context of why are those the things that you need? Like, what are the difficulties that you're specifically experiencing that warrant two more officers, that warrant? three
And
more
that would be a
squad
follow-up
cars? So,
question.
yeah, so that, I'm saying that's the point that I'm trying to make.
Okay.
Mr. James.
So I was pushing, but, so I would say, fine, I think we've had a discussion, so we can definitely do it. If we're going to do it, then do it on purpose, meaning then we should have meeting minutes, we should capture these data points so that we can find the trend analysis, not just say it, ask the question, and then the responses go nowhere, they're tracked nowhere, their data lies nowhere, and then we're talking about making a correlation, because right now, we're not taking that data in from these responses. It's not going somewhere so that we can overlay it with other data and help with trend analysis. So do it and do it with a purpose, but just don't do it because it's on a piece of paper.
You gotta start tracking these responses. That's fair.
Anything else? So,
If I could just jump in here, I just wanted to just say too, if we're gonna do any kind of trend analysis and we talk about correlation, just to be mindful that again, correlation doesn't mean causation, or it just indicates a relationship and what the strength of that relationship is. And there are lots of types of correlations that will tell you different things, but just generally correlation doesn't equal causation. But you can take a lot of variables and run them together to see what will give you the strongest relationship. So I just always want to remind folks of that.
so, Q&A Chiefs meeting document that we have questions, can we go ahead and get a motion? Can someone make a motion to approve these? Then we'll follow up at the subsequent meeting.
So I think, wait, point of clarification. So approve the questions on this document, the one with the back.
I'm gonna call it number two.
Number two, yeah, as with the edits as discussed, but some of those edits need to be made. So I would volunteer personally to say that I can give staff language by Friday so that folks can have something to look at Monday before we have our chiefs meeting to say, yes, these are the questions. You get what I'm saying? Like, unless we're gonna wordsmith this right now.
Can I ask for, if you had two specific ones, you asked about deleting on 5 and 6 second,
Yes.
so I didn't hear any pushback on those, right?
Not that I recall. And then for 8, it's tailoring the question. I mean,
Okay.
the whole conversation we just had.
Right.
For 8, it's tailoring the question. And then, 9 is evergreen. That's kind of, it doesn't even say need to be on the list of after that, I guess, but yeah.
So one of the things I think that we need to do, we have this document in front of us now, I'd like to vote on it now, rather than continue to make suggestions. We need to do this now, and again, we can revisit it, but I think that we have a document here. And Mr. James, your suggestions are on this document, right, as well?
They're on the back. I was gonna say, we need to take a look.
Okay, well, Jones, and maybe you're after, so let's just take a moment to review this, right? We can go ahead and look at that now.
So,
Yes, ma'am.
For online service. So you don't necessarily have, you all don't necessarily have to send something. But if questions are formulated and given to staff, they can put online with the link that you send out, and that data is tracked automatically from that format. And so it's something that we recently established about 4 months ago, using our grant fund. So it's something that we can use in this.
So you're referring to,
All of the questions.
Okay.
Data.
okay,
Just saying, instead of some kind of letter, we just make it a form
okay,
that they fill out.
right, okay,
all right, so then, just so we're on the same page then, so 2 and 3 are out, right? So 2 and 3 are. So 4 is actually number 2.
correct.
Okay, just so we're all.
And we'll move it to, okay, right.
Three, taking out the left, and 664, taking out the left, right?
But how many questions do you have all together?
All right, so I can read it if you want. So one of them is, does your agency,
Can
yes,
you just finish?
Yeah.
Want us to make sure
yeah,
which ones are all of these things just the way they are?
yeah, yeah, we're just eliminating 2 and 3.
Yeah, okay.
And then 9 will always be whatever the last question is.
Gotcha.
So,
Wait, so 7 becomes 5,
yep, 8 becomes
And then-
6,
8 becomes 6.
and then
Do you have questions? Is an evergreen question? I feel like this is a good question. I get the idea.
Seven,
it's a
right?
good,
Oh, no,
it's a
yeah,
good
it becomes
closing.
7.
The
Yeah.
last question.
Yeah, I think it's a closing remark.
Yeah, so it just becomes the last, whatever it
Yeah.
is.
So that's 7 on the front. B becomes 8. If we
Well,
keep
can
it.
we, can we talk, let's talk about it first before we number that.
Yeah. I think it's a good question.
Does your agency use or have as a resource a third-party mediator to assist with complaint resolution?
So if I may, yes, sir. I want to jump back a little bit because there was a proposed, is there an A on the printout that y'all have? I just want to,
I have
No.
B and C.
gotcha. Now I'm tracking. So I'm looking at the electronic version. There's an A,
Okay.
A question. I'm sorry, can do.
Bottom.
Oh, so there's an A question, and that question is as follows. So that you're tracking, it says some chiefs have remarked that they investigate a complaint, and once their investigator speaks with the complainant, or they jointly review actual body cam footage of an incident, the complainant sees themselves differently, sees the officer differently, or the actions that occurred from a new perspective. So the question is, that ultimately goes to, do you have a process that allows your complainant to withdraw their complaints? See that, again, this question draws from our actual conversations with chiefs who said, hey, I get these complaints and then I've got to finish this thing up. I've got to send it today. It's got to go through this long process when sometimes the complainant hasn't even followed up. They see it differently. We have some kind of mutual understanding of the situation, but it's got to follow through this process. So that's where the question was asking them, if a person wants to withdraw their complaint, what process do you recommend when a community member would like to do that? Because right now there is not one. The way the legislation is written, a complaint can be withdrawn only if it's submitted to the PAB, and it has to be withdrawn within 3 days of our receipt of that complaint. Likewise, we're supposed to send that complaint to the agency within 3 days. So we don't even have a period to allow it to kind of sit with us and allow them to withdraw it before it's supposed to be with the agency. Once it goes, there's no way to withdraw it. It has to go through the full process. But what I heard from several of the chiefs is many times the complainant doesn't even want to go any further in their process, but it's still resource intensive. And I think that from our ACC's perspective, they got to go through a case that essentially nobody is even looking for an output at this point. So that's where the question was, if they had a recommendation for us or a suggestion for us or a process that they would use to withdraw.
Or that they use, because
Well,
the legislation only covers complaints that come to us,
Correct.
not
They
complaints
may
that
have a
go to
complaint that
them.
goes to them.
Yeah,
Oh, you-
That was A.
That was A.
All right.
Would that become 7?
No, that
I'm
was,
not convinced of the numbering yet. I took Carlos advice. Don't number until we finish.
if we're agreeing, that becomes 8.
do you, so what's can you say what the actual question itself
I
is?
already have it written, so it's in the reading.
Yeah,
So you
I can't see it right now, that's.
No
all.
problem, no problem. So the question to it, there was that leading part, then it
Yeah.
says, what process do you follow if a person wants to withdraw their complaint?
Uh-huh.
Or what process do you recommend when a
that's good.
community member would like to withdraw a
Yeah,
complaint?
okay.
That makes sense, covering both?
Yeah, that's good.
Then there was a follow-up question to that scenario that says, what happens if the complainant documentation for the officer's personnel file, if they withdraw it? Or does the complainant or the complaint doesn't cooperate with the investigation? In other words, does that just sit in their file? You know, I don't know. So I'm just asking the question, because I'm just curious. Just as if they went through the ACC process, if they were exonerated, you know, where it sits, what happens to those?
So
I
if it's
don't-
just a complaint, it shouldn't really be part of their file yet. Because the complaint has to go through the process through validation. Yeah, you're asking. a
I'm
question.
asking a question,
I'm saying it
yeah.
should be. That's the answer we're looking.
It makes sense there. That-
Right, it should be.
So that was A. And I purposely did that alphabet versus the numbers, because I was trying not to confuse those numbers. So then B, which I think you have, is
Yeah.
does your agency use or have a resource, access to a resource for a third-party mediator? Because it is allowed within the legislation to do that. Just don't know if folks are using it. It may be a tool, again, to reduce time and reduce costs. So if they're aware of it, they may or may not be. Some may be using it, some may not, but at least gives us the input. It goes back to that baseline of knowing what's out there as well. So that's what that question comes from. Does your agency use or have a resource for third-party mediator to assist with complaint resolution? Right, and then is C on your document?
Yep.
Okay, so C, is the PAB is looking to gather data on the actual disciplinary outcomes, kind of goes through the explanation there. We don't have that as a close for our loop to understand kind of what happens there. We don't have disciplinary outcome information right now in any of our data collection and reporting. And this is just asking the question, would you be willing to close the data loop and submit that information? That is, once they're given the recommendation, what they actually impose, because it could be, or there are options that can be exercised within that recommendation from the ACC, but we don't know what actually was imposed. So the question is, would they be willing to help us by submitting that information to the PAB?
So the question, okay, so you want to know if they have raised their disciplinary and send that data over to the PAB.
Correct, whether if they raised it, if it's the option was, 2 days leave or loss of pay, well, which one did you exercise? We don't know, we're just looking what may be patterns and trends in there.
So I think, so 2 days leave or loss of pay, I think that decision is made by the ACC. I think that whatever the issue, whatever the findings are, we'll say 2 days loss of pay.
I want to double check, because the letter says something different. I looked at some examples and the letter quotes what's in the matrix, which would be
Either or.
either or.
Oh, that's a great question. So I think that's a question that I need to ask tomorrow, because whatever the ACC decides is what the punishment should be.
As a baseline, but the
Yeah,
chief.
like the 3 cent.
What I'm saying is right, but Mr. James was saying either or when it comes to 2 days loss of pay. I think that, but I see what you're saying, yeah, so we need to have clarification.
I want to know which one they
And if they
choose.
change it, can they provide that data to us?
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
We can clarify, you're saying the ACC recommends one or the other, like you recommend either.
2 days loss of pay.
And
Right, we'll
that's
say
your,
that.
it's not like,
That's it.
even if there's another equivalent option, you recommend the one, you're saying that needs to be the one that they take.
Absolutely.
Okay, I think that this question should just be the first sentence, the second sentence. You don't need most of the middle, just the last question of would you be willing to
Right.
submit your final decision and whether you raise the penalty to the PAB?
If it has changed from the
Or if
administrative
it's
charge
changed from the
committee
ACC,
recommendation.
yes.
If it has changed from the recommendation of the administrative charge committee and you increase it, yeah.
Go submit final decision if it's changed.
I think I'm trying to solve for it too much. Because I agree with you. You may say, the matrix may say loss of leave or pay.
Mhm.
The ACC may say loss of leave.
Right.
I believe that they could go with loss of pay because it's still within the matrix. They haven't gone underneath what you said. They went with an equivalent. Not saying they did, not saying they didn't.
Yeah.
Just trying to close the loop to figure out which one, because I understand what you're saying. I've seen letters that say something different, but I understand what you're saying.
Okay, all right, so if,
But we just need to ask the question and get started.
and I think that's a question that we need to ask to make sure from our perspective that when we ask that question, that we have the data to back up that question.
That's what they do.
Right, okay, that's my clarifying question, because if they have a matrix,
Mhm,
1, 2, or 3, and you recommend 2,
mhm.
does that mean then, okay, that's your recommendation, but we don't, it's not binding? We can do 1, 2, or 3.
They can't do much.
Oh, okay, we do
But they
2
do
or 3.
more, so that's another.
Right.
that we
And,
can-
and you do want to know, because
Well,
that's a trend.
so the matrix, for an example, if the matrix says 2 days loss of pay or whatever the case is. When the ACC decides on that case, that is what the ACC is deciding. The chief cannot then say, well, no, I'd rather give him 2 days off or whatever the case is. What we're suggesting is what they go with. Now, the chief can raise
That's what.
the level, right? But he cannot even go, if he says, well, I don't want you to miss 2 days, it's this or that, you can't do that. You can only go higher.
Right, that's fine.
Right, no. Right, I'm just, and I'm sorry,
But
yeah,
you can't do it inside the
Correct.
same box.
correct, whatever
That
the
don't-
decision.
That
But
would-
that's what I'm saying, we need to have that to make sure before we ask that question.
I would say, I feel like they probably shouldn't be able to, because like,
Correct,
the way the law is written, it's
Correct.
the ACC decision,
correct,
it's like the,
not the chief
and
decision.
the ACC decides according to the matrix, but they're supposed to accept the ACC's decision, whatever that is.
But then Mr. James is
So,
saying they
yeah,
supposed
no, no,
to
no.
the contrary, yeah.
Well, but it's a good question though.
Yeah, it is,
Because they
it
might
is.
not want
They
to
may
interpret
see it
that
in
way.
They can see it as equal.
Yeah, yeah,
Right, and that's what I'm, that's all I'm
I
trying to
see,
get.
yeah, I
That's
hear
a
you.
good catch.
I'm saying, ask
They
the
don't-
question,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I'm also not trying to give the blueprint. I'm
Yeah,
trying.
okay, so I think that, okay, so but I think if we shorten it up and just get directly to the point,
I think it's, would you be willing to submit your final decision and then the point you made on, and did it change from ACC?
did you, right, from the ACC, did it increase from the ACC's recommendations?
I think
Because
you
if
want
the
to be
question-
more open.
Okay,
You just
go
want
ahead,
to
Ms.
say,
James, one more
Or
time.
just your
I'm sorry.
final
give us your final decision.
Correct.
Okay, I see what you're saying, so
We're not trying to
don't give it to me.
forecast.
Yeah.
Gotcha, okay, so
Okay.
we
Just did on
we just
line.
pulled that, that's all right. Close session real quick.
Yes, yes.
So, okay, so, Mr. Jones,
So then, just the first sentence and then the question.
so can you read this up?
The PAB is looking to gather data on actual disciplinary outcomes for cases that have resulted in administrative charges. Would you be willing to submit your final decision on
Gotcha.
complaint cases? Right?
Yes.
Does it need to be anything else or just submit your final decision
Right, so that covers it.
To the PA.
to the PAB, yes.
Should have been to us or to the ACC, because they're the ones that are making the recommendation.
Well, I would say to us, the PAB, because the ACC's job is concluded at that
charge.
point, right? So this is more for us to look at data analysis on disciplinary outcomes. So I would say to the PAB.
You'd be willing to submit your final decision to the PAB.
I'm good with.
Okay. Okay, cool. So I like it the way that Mr. Jones just read it. I think that I'm in favor of that. And thank you for that, Mr. James. So, is everyone okay with the language, the question, the way that Mr. Jones read it? Okay, great.
So can we add those? Yeah, can we add
Number
those?
7, A is 7,
Yep. B is
B
8,
is 8, C is 9,
and then
and
10 is the closing
and
with the question.
8 is 9 is 10.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. B is 8.
B is 8, 9 is, no, C is 9,
Correct.
and
the last
then,
question is, do you have questions?
yeah,
And 9
and that'll be
is
number 10.
10.
Yep.
And just to be clear, the question that is number 6 still warrants some level of wordsmithing
I thought you said that though, right? I thought you said.
that we're gonna figure out right now. No, we decided that the essence of the question needs to be in a way, but I don't, unless someone has the language that we decided on for 6, but I
I
don't.
thought it was, how does your department ensure data is publicly accessible? Stop there.
No,
I think you're talking about
the
number
new number
8.
6.
The new number 6.
The one
Domain,
about the
that's-
resources, yeah, the one
Okay.
about like the
Oh,
resource.
number 8.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Are you currently experiencing any limitation, restriction? Lack of resources that are affecting.
I would suggest leave it, I understand what you're getting to, I would say just leave it as is until we're able to work that through. We might be able to be a little more specific if they ask,
Right.
but.
Yeah, I
for the
would
sake
say,
of-
I would say you could leave it as a follow-up to go, is there
Right.
anything that you think that we can do? Or, you know, like, you can nail down on, because whatever whatever they answer can lead to a conversation where you can get into the weeds on it.
I am okay with leaving the question as is for now, but I will come back to it for sure.
Say for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so because I'm just
Just give
for,
us time to workshops.
right, but, and also we need to make sure that we're moving forward on something. The
Yep.
more we say, push it out, it gets a little bit more and more, and we think about it. So I think right now, deciding this and moving forward, we
Yep.
can relax and say, the next meeting, here's our document, here are the questions. So, thank you on that. So any other questions,
Does-
concerns, or comments?
We have a motion, but don't have a second.
I did move to adopt this document as amended.
Okay,
It's,
so,
Second.
yes, sir, thank you. So, yes, motion was made by Mr. Jones to adopt the chief's questions, document number 2, with the edits that we all approved. Was made by Mr. Jones, with a second by Mr. James. All in favor to adopt the chief's meetings questions of document number 2, say aye. Any opposed? None. Okay, we are using this document, thank you.
Chiefs meeting at the end of the month.
Okay, yes, yes.
and I have them too, so I run it.
Because I like to get them to the chiefs, like, a couple of days
Before
before
they
they
meet.
come.
Okay.
If I can get it to them next week.
I'll get you better.
That's what he said Friday, didn't you, right there, Mr. Jones?
Yeah. Flag it out.
Yeah,
Flag it out.
Of course, we visit the questions after each chief.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Next up on the new business is, agency data and chief meeting.
Oh, no. Get those. But I can look at it.
You had? Yeah. Okay.
So at our last meeting, we talked about it before, but it came up at the last meeting to say, hey, is there something we can do about some type of data to prepare for the specific agencies that will be at that chief's meeting? So, at Ms. Bryant's request, I took that task on to try to create, and that's what these one pages are. It is just to kind of capture the, kind of most relevant data that we have related to those agencies that would be attending the upcoming chiefs meeting. So I think those have been provided to you electronically. There's a print-off version as well. I tried to, again, stay with a quick one page, give you the data based on, the 2024 Police Accountability Annual Report, the Administrative Charging Committee's Annual Report for 2024, as well as if there were any website or other documents that were cited, as a part of this information. I did send out just a request to the subcommittee chairs to see if those subcommittees had, some input on them related to their specific areas, whether that was, our engagement, our outreach, or recommendations, data. If there was something from those subcommittees, they'd reach out to the chairs so that they could connect with their subcommittees and provide some. So I did get some feedback on that. And I do acknowledge and thank those that responded. We definitely have some data gaps that we need to close. There were ideas and why don't we put this here or put that there, but we don't have that data to accurately put into into a document like this. So we definitely want to do that. So we captured the complaints and cases overview. There at the top, that's the information that we have relevant to the most recent year. Then there's the key information that kind of, depending on the agency, may date back to 2022, up to 2025, if there have been some meetings or the chiefs have attended a quarterly meeting. You asked, we were talking earlier about attending those quarterly chiefs meetings. Some have been asked some of these questions previously. And so that is captured. Got those from the minutes. The areas of interest, you'll see those there. They relate back to recommendations. Often one of the recommendations in our 2024 report that was cited and referenced in the Legislation and Recommendations Committee report is what's driving some of the recommendations that you will see for each of the agencies that regard them updating website or including information regarding the PAB on their website. One did, I will say that there was one agency, we do have a reference in the recommendations for collaborative dialogue with the city's police review and advisory board. That did come out from a meeting that we had. It was with the library system. So that was one of the feedbacks that came through at that time as well to make us aware. So you have the 5 that was aware of, for attending that upcoming meeting. So I'll take if there are any questions or edits, corrections, changes to the document. We can entertain those.
I don't have any suggested edits, just in terms of like, I think this is great. I mean, I think there's everything on it for really like that we can. On such short notice, it looks great. My biggest thing is just like, there are just way too many zeros in some of these, like granted, some of these are really small municipalities, so that's something to keep in mind. But like Upper Marlboro at 0 is kind of surprising to me. And yeah, I mean, some of this could be chalked up to like, we need to have a conversation maybe when we have them on like just exposure, letting folks in that community know that they have this process. Because of those, like Morningside, I'm pretty sure is pretty small, I had to assume. But I don't think Upper Marlboro is, so like 0 complaints filed and 0 cases reviewed by ACC since 2022 is surprising to me.
So if we look at it, can we just, make reference to what we see and not affiliate this particular time?
Oh, my bad. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, apologies, no disrespect.
And just a comment to that, it could be because Upper Marlboro also includes, you've got cross jurisdiction with the larger Fitchburg County Police Department.
Yeah,
And a lot of times people don't even know that the Upper Marlboro shop exists.
Yeah.
It's just like 3 people. So a lot of those, yes, no. So a lot of those like the town, the little town.
Yeah.
And so most of those go to the broader.
that makes more sense.
Thank you. Next up on our agenda, community and external outreach. I do know that Vice Chair, Sanchez and Mr. Jones attended something today. You want to give a real quick 2-minute overview? If you want to? Mr. Jones, I know you.
Sure. Yeah, no, we can do that. Yeah, so we had the opportunity to present with the Latino Advisory Board, right? The Latino Advisory Board. I was chair of the commissioner board for Prince George's County, just to let them know who we are, that we're here, the resources we have for the Latino community in the county. We just let them know where we came from, legislators that enacted us, our role in terms of appointments to other boards, how we interact with the other boards, as well as our desire to build a bigger relationship with Latino community to make sure they understand that we are a resource because, in our interactions and data right now, I think they are underrepresented in terms of complaints filed and just interactions with the board and, with their law enforcement. And so part of that is just visibility, right? I think countywide, we're trying to build that visibility. So we just emphasized that point. I mean, they were receptive and their executive director or like their lead person is very, very, excited to work with us, very amenable. It was a positive interaction. Mr. Vice Chair was there with me, so I'll give him a chance.
Yeah, no, I think it was good. I did ask them for 2 specific things. One is that when we do the push for appointments later on this year, that they kind of help us get people in. And the other one is just as they hold events or as they know of events that are going on, to make sure that they push that to us so that we can have a presence there as well. Because I think it's always important to capture it from wherever. Yeah, I mean, I think speaking a little candidly is, I think we expected a little bit more interaction that maybe wasn't quite there, but I mean,
You got the message across.
we're there to present information and make sure that people understand that we're a resource to the community at large as well.
Great, and I think that is important for considering what's going on right now in this country, that we don't want that community to feel alienated, right? That they have every right to file a complaint. We don't want any law enforcement agency to marginalize that community. So I think that that's a great mix. Thank you.
Board members are probably like 4 or 5, but the room was probably like 10,
Oh,
10 to 12 people.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Training and education, next agenda item. I don't have anything on All right, so next up on that, announcements, I have none, Mr. Vice Chair, do you have any stuff? I was talking back.
I did. Why?
Okay, we need to come, you can whisper.
No, Mr. Bell is. No, Mr.
Okay, you'll have to think back.
Or representative of the subcommittee of appointments. We interviewed 3 individuals. Our recommendation was for Clinton White to be a member of our AHB, which he subsequently accepted that appointment.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nelson. All right. That is all that I have. Thank you again for that. That's it. No other announcements? Somebody, don't you do it, Mr. Jones? I know you're at, no, Mr. Jones.
Move to adjourn.
Okay, Mr. Jones, so motion to adjourn made by Mr. Jones, is there a second? Oh. Oh. Okay.
We know.
The motion, right, seconded by Mr. Melvin, to adjourn. All in favor to adjourn, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? I heard that in the spring. Yes, ma'am. All right. Meeting adjourned at 7:58 PM. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. That's how.